I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zeiss Palmer.
And this is Arcade Mark.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
And welcome back to our biased reactions.
Time to be
Advanced
biased.
Player's Guide.
That's
Part
right.
3.
We're in Archetypes already on page 148 because we kind of mostly skipped the classes that are new since they'll get their own class chats. Look, it's a dinosaur. That's pretty biased. There's dinosaur. There's pterosaurs. There's a volcano. There's nobody with an archetype. Is a very cool
But
chapter opener.
it's pretty hard to be like, I definitively have an archetype in a scene. But it is
That's
a cool
true.
scene.
It's awesome.
So, right here on this first page here, you'll see
You mean the second page?
Yes, okay. This first spread, you'll see a list of all of the archetype options.
Acrobat, archaeologist, archer, assassin, bastion, beastmaster, blessed one, bounty hunter, cavalier, celebrity, dandy, dragon disciple, dual weapon warrior, duelist, eldritch archer, familiar master, gladiator, herbalist, horizon walker, investigator, multi-class, linguist, lore master, martial artist, mauler, medic, oracle, multi-class, pirate, poisoner, ritualist, scout, scroll trickster, scrounger, sentinel, shadow dancer, snare crafter, swashbuckler, multi-class, talisman, dabbler, vigilante, viking, weapon improviser, witch, multi-class. That's all, folks.
Pokemon. Not quite as many of them as there are Pokemon, but there are quite a few choices. So, we have the standard definitions and information about how to use archetypes starting here, and get straight into the multi-classes here with the investigator multi-class archetype.
Investigator?
So we didn't talk in great detail about the investigator.
That wasn't the alphabetically first one in the list of archetypes. That's because the multi-classes come first.
That is right. So, as usual for these multi-class archetypes, you get a dedication feat that gives you some of those key features of that class. You can really feel like you're taking.
You can pursue a lead and clue in,
Mm-hmm.
which we'll talk about more in Class Chat Investigator. You get training in society and another skill, so you got a bunch of skills and a bunch of abilities.
There's basic deduction and advanced deduction.
Kind of like everything.
That let you take the feats. Investigator Stratagem, which lets you get the devise a stratagem action from the investigator class.
But you can't use your intelligence modifier.
Mm-hmm.
Keen Recollection, which gives you the Keen Recollection class feature. Skill Mastery, which gives you more skills, which is like what Rogue has. And Master Spotter, which is like what Ranger has to get more perception. Also, on the left-facing page here, we can see that while the information about archetypes in the intro is, it's often skipped, but it's important information, the multi-class and spellcasting information is already in the core rulebook, but the alchemical archetypes and temporary items rules are new rules that are here to support the fact that there are a lot of archetypes in the Advanced Player's Guide that are either alchemical or grant temporary items. So the alchemical archetypes and temporary item rules are very helpful. They let you learn about sort of advanced alchemy level, which is what the multi-class alchemist deals with and uses, and then temporary items, which talks about items that kind of disappear and have the general rule for that, so they don't have to be repeated in every single archetype, because let me tell you, a one-page archetype with a full-body art, especially if it's like a reasonably tall one with a staff like the investigator here, it's not easy if it's not a multi-class. Multi-class are somewhat easier because basic deduction and advanced deduction covers like 30 different feats or whatever it does. But for a lot of other ones, it's like you have to get the whole concept down in one page. And you're going to be missing some flavor text that you probably would have wanted and lore information and probably not have enough feats. Especially if there are any focus spells in the archetype, as we've certainly seen in like the Lost Omens World Guide. Some of those archetypes did not have enough space because they were one page. And some of these are one page too, but putting that information in the introduction makes it easier to get more stuff into the archetype.
Speaking of multi-class, here we've got
Oracle.
Oracle.
Very, very standard for a spellcaster, except that it's got a curse that has to go in there. So You get the mild constant effects of the Mystery's curse that are sort of have no mechanical effect, like your hair standing on end or like little flames seeming to dance around you from the Oracle dedication. And then if you want to actually get like the curses that really do something to you, you get the from First Revelation, which gives you a revelation spell and can give you a special version of the curse. You get the full minor curse from your mystery, but the moderate effect is replaced with just being flat-footed in addition to the effects of the minor curse. And then there are basic and advanced mysteries, basic, expert, and master spellcasting, and breath. So those are the typical caster stuff plus curse.
And then we have the Swashbuckler.
That's right. So Swashbuckler multi-class starts you off with, you're technically in a style, but like a lot of the other ones, you pick one, but you don't necessarily get everything from it. However, you actually do get the ability to gain panache in the way that your style can. You get trained in acrobatics or the skill associated with your style and Swashbuckler class DC. And so you can just get panache, which can be handy. There's also basic and advanced flair to pick up Swashbuckler feats. Level 4, you get a finishing precision, which gives you the precise strike class feature, but only for 1 damage or 1d6 for a finisher, and then a very basic finisher that lets you do a finisher, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then Swashbuckler's Riposte, Swashbuckler's Speed to get some extra speed, and Evasiveness, which the rogue has to get more reflex saves.
And then we have the Witch.
That sure is true.
Yes, which acts like you might expect for a spellcaster. You can choose a patron. You've got some spells that you can increase by taking the basic, expert, and master spellcasting feats.
It is a little bit different because instead of starting with 2 cantrips per day that you can prepare, it only gets 1. But it also has a pretty weak and not great familiar. And then later, though, which is very good for it, if you, let me see. Or does it only get, well, yeah, you prepare 1. That's what I thought. If you take basic witch spellcasting, or not basic witchcraft, your familiar automatically improves for free in addition to getting the witch feat of your choice. So if you go real deep into it and take some of the witch feats, you wind up getting, it pays dividends over and above the other multi-class spellcasters.
Very cool.
That's the multi-class. Let's move on to the not multi-class.
The Acrobat, with a very, very appropriate art here.
Yes, so if you're playing an acrobat, if you want to be good at acrobatics. In fact, the acrobat's feat dedication basically advances your acrobatics at all possible moments. That's what it does. It also lets you tumble through enemies even faster if you critically succeed at tumble through. Then you get a bunch of acrobatics-based things, like Contortionist, where you can squeeze through things really easily, and you can make creatures flat-footed to you when you escape from them using acrobatics, dodge away a reaction that can
make you more likely to dodge an attack in the first place, and if you do dodge it, then you can step away.
Yep. Graceful Leaper, where you can roll acrobatics to jump. Tumbling Strike, where you can acrobatics against someone's reflex save and potentially make them flat-footed against a strike. It's all one action to move through their space and potentially hit them, although you, on a critical failure, you don't get to strike at all. And then Tumbling Opportunist.
Which is when you use any of those tumbling abilities that you have, you can perform a breathtaking feat of acrobatics and trip your opponent.
That's right. It's fun to trip
using
your opponent.
acrobatics instead of athletics for your check.
You sure can.
You sure are good at acrobatics.
That's why you're an acrobat.
Yes, that's
all right. So, Archaeologist is a mixture of sort of like scholastic training and a little bit of luck and also some weird magical stuff.
So naturally for that you need there has a fair number of prerequisites. You need to be trained in perception, society, and thievery.
You need them all. It also has some additional feats, which is a new thing in Advanced Player's Guide, where you can have feats that are just, say, additional feats, and they are available as well, and they're from the core rulebook with a page citation, and you get them at the listed levels as archetype feats for your archetype,
So that's
not
a way
class
to,
feats
yeah,
from the original class.
that's a way to square the circle in terms of not having as much space while still giving
That
a
is
broad
correct.
variety
So
of
you get
options.
Trap Finder and Delay Trap. Dedication is going to give you a expert in society and thievery and a +1 circumstance bonus to recall knowledge if it's about ancient history, people, and cultures, because you're an archaeologist. Magical Scholastics gives you detect magic guidance and read aura cantrips. Settlement Scholastics lets you pick about a particular settlement and become very good at the lore about that settlement, and you become trained in it, and you gain a language from there. It's a skill feat. You can do it again.
Scholastic identification lets you use society when deciphering writing, no matter what kind of writing it is, and also lets you use society to identify magic.
As long as it's a item or location with cultural significance.
So vastly expands the use of society there.
Yep. Archaeologist luck is once per hour. You fill a check against a trap, specifically, not another kind of hazard. You can re-roll the failed check and use the new result.
And Greater Magical Scholastic expands the spells that you have to add augury, locate, and non-detection.
Yeah, and the non-detection also is only on an object, but is automatically heightened to your top level.
So that you can protect those artifacts that you discover from wandering thieves.
This archaeologist on here seems to have discovered, like, some kind of Sahedron emblazoned book or tablet of some kind. Maybe it's a stone tablet.
It looks like a stone tablet, yeah.
Alright, so then we've got Archer. The Archer is our first combat style archetype, all about different combat styles. So it's got a bunch of archery feats from, a lot of them are from fighter and not ranger, because some of the ranger ones are very, like, your hunted target-y. But it's got a bunch of archery feats that are additional feats. See that you can see there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 additional feats. Plus Archer Dedication, which is going to advance your proficiency with bows.
Starting by granting it to you in the first place, so that
Sure
you
will.
can add archery skill onto whatever character you want.
And crit specialization. So it's much more useful for someone who just doesn't know about bows to become an archer than it is for someone who's already a master archer to become, like, the uber optimized master archer, even though their class already has tons and tons of archery.
But that makes sense, because it gives the archery to the classes that don't already have them.
Right, and the classes that have them, you know, they already have perfectly good archer options, and it's not always about, like, tripling down on what you were, on your specialization. You still can get benefit, though. Like, if you want, a ranger could take it to get point-blank shot. Like, I mean, it works. That you can get quick shot, so that you can interact to draw a weapon from the bow weapon group that's loaded or has reload 0, and then strike.
Advanced bow training to get proficiency with advanced bows.
Yep, that's right. There's crossbow terror, which gives you it's kind of like crossbow ace, except for it doesn't involve hunted prey. And then archer's aim, which is one that is, like, just for archers, where you slow down and make a ranged strike with a +2 bonus that is going to ignore concealment, reduce hidden, and all that jazz.
Generally make it much easier to target your foe.
Yep.
Then we have
Assassin.
the Assassin.
So they've got poison resistance, poisoning weapons, sneak attacker, and improved poison weapon. But they've also got their assassin dedication, which gives them mark for death, where you spend basically a full turn, 3 actions to mark someone for death.
One thing that the assassin archetype does not have, which it had in first edition, was a requirement that the character be evil.
That's true.
So it talks about how you can play an assassin who lives by a moral code.
Yes, you can. So you can mark someone for death and give you +2 perception to find them, deception to feint them, And your agile and finesse weapons gain backstabber and deadly d6 traits against your marked for death person. And if they already had the deadly trait, then it becomes deadlier. Then you gain expert backstabber, where your backstabber can backstab for more backstabbing instead of the original amount of backstabbing. Surprise attack, where it's just kind of a rogue thing that's also very good for assassins. Angel of death, where all of your strikes against your mark for death target have the death trait, so they're instantly killed at 0 hit points. Can't be communicated with or returned to life unless somebody counteracts you. And then assassinate, a 2-action level 12 feat that basically tries to instantly slay your marked for death person. And even if you just hit, it does 6d6 extra damage with a basic fortitude save. If they critically fail, they die. It is an incapacitation effect.
As you might expect from something that says if you critically fail, you die.
Yeah, that's a kind of incapacitation, alright. Then there's Bastion.
That is for sure.
Bastion's the shieldy McShield archetype. It's got, well, it looks like 5 extra shield feats that come from, you know, probably fighter and champion.
Bastion dedication gives you reactive shield
right away. So you gain the benefits of the reactive shield fighter feat. Now, obviously, that's not going to count towards the 2 other feats to get out of the Bastion dedication, because it's 2 other feats. But
yes,
you do have reactive shield. Then you've got disarming block, which can let you try to disarm creatures whose attack you blocked with your weapon. Nimble shield hand, where you can use the hand that is holding the shield to try to hold like some other objects, but not like a weapon or something that you have to really manipulate or use. Not on tower shields either, because it's a giant tower shield, but more like a buckler. Destructive block,
where you can have the shield take even more of the damage for you. So the shield will take more damage, but you will take even less.
That's right. It's like, no, I really don't want to take damage. You take it, shield. And then shield salvation, where if your shield would be destroyed due to the damage it takes, it always remains at 1 hit point instead. And then you can try to repair it, but you obviously can't use shield salvation to save the same shield until your next preparations.
How about the
Beastmaster?
The Beastmaster got 2 pages.
It does. So it has some additional feats, which is like a bunch of additional feats, some of which are from this book because they're from the Ranger spells that were Warden spells and were very, very companion focused. It says Warden spells granted by these feats are Beastmaster focus spells for you. There's also some feats that are just sort of very companion-y, Companion's Cry and Side by Side that are from the core rulebook.
So as a Beastmaster, it's possible for you to have not just an animal companion, but more than one animal companion at a time. You can have up to 4 of them, and you can switch around to decide which one of them is going to be active with you.
You spend a minute to do that,
and which one of them might be around hunting or foraging.
This is actually an archetype that I have on a character.
Mm-hmm.
I only have one companion for now, but you never know. So, yes, there is absolutely, you can have additional companions, you can get Heal Animal as a Beastmaster focus spell, you can get a mature companion, you can get an incredible companion, you can get a specialized companion. I mean, those all were clearly going to be in there. You can get Beastmaster's Trance, which is a special focus spell that's at the end of here that lets you go into a trance to see through your companion's senses. You can get Beastmaster Bond, where you communicate telepathically with your animal companions within 100 feet, or Legendary Nature anywhere on the planet. Beastmaster's Call, which is a sort of thing where you kind of conjure a primal projection of a non-active companion so that you can get its support benefit, even though it's not there. And that's a 1 action, once per turn type thing.
Specialized Beastmaster Companion to get specializations for all of your companions. And finally, Lead the Pack, which lets you have up to 2 animal companions active at the same time.
It sure does. Now, it doesn't give you like a godlike action economy. You still wind up getting about the same number of actions as usual extra, but you can divide it among your companions. That's more overall hit points, and of course they are their own separate creatures, so they have separate multiple attack penalties. So commanding each of them to strike once is probably a lot better than commanding one to strike twice.
Or you can command each of them to move in order to get into a good position to be able to attack the next turn. So you've got a lot of flexibility there.
Yep, that sure is true. So let's move on to
the Blessed One.
Blessed One has been blessed by a deity, which could be an evil deity, a good deity, a neutral deity, and it could be intentional, or like for the mortal, for you, or like unintentional and you're not happy about it. So you could decide how to roleplay that out. It's all about the land hands on mercies. So there's a bunch of additional feats that are like all champion mercy based feats, some of which are from this book. And Blessed One dedication basically gives you lay on hands. That's what it gives you. Blessed Sacrifice gives you the Protector's Sacrifice domain spell from the core rulebook. Blessed Spell is a once per 10 minutes ability that's a meta magic that lets you try to use your Mercy ability on a spell slot spell. And the reaction Blessed Denial is a reaction to your allies becoming frightened, drained, enfeebled, sickened, or stupefied, where you can reduce the value of one of those conditions by 1. When it's coming in, you're like, oh, drain 2, no, drain 1.
Pretty useful.
Yep. It's a simple but very effective archetype.
How about the Bounty Hunter?
Bounty Hunters, they go chasing after a prey that they're hunting. So they get hunt prey right away, and they also get a +2 to gather information about their prey that most people do not get. So if you already are a ranger, you still get that benefit in addition.
They have Tools of the Trade, which trains them in a variety of non-lethal weapons: bola, sap, and whip.
Yep. They can get a posse, where they spend a minute to give some of the benefits of their Bounty Hunter dedication, like half of the circumstance bonuses, to their posse.
Keep pace to keep up with their prey as a reaction.
That's right. Your prey can't escape. Oh, it should be a lowercase e, but it can't escape like normal escape. Not like it can't use the escape action. It's about moving after them, like Linda said. Opportunistic grapple, where you can. That's a pretty powerful one. Your prey critically fails a melee attack against you, and you're just like, yeah, you screwed up. I'm gonna grab you. All right.
And then we have the Cavalier.
Another archetype I have on a character. Cavalier, skilled and dedicated warrior of the battlefield. I was reproducing a Cavalier character I had from Pathfinder 1st Edition to play in a converted version of the next game that he was in. And that worked out pretty well with the Cavalier archetype here. So you can have pledges, and there's a sidebar about Cavalier pledges. The dedication basically gives you a mount animal companion. And
yeah, so for the pledges, you might have a certain ideal, and a lot of the ideals that already exist in the game are great sources for that. So you might pledge to the Druid's Animal Order to be tied, and then you're tied into that, or pledge to the Church of Abadar to be held to the same standards.
Or make something else up.
Make something else up. And work with the deity to work with the GM to figure out.
You can pledge to the nation of Taldor.
Yes. And
see what Princess Eutropia wants you to do. So the Cavalier dedication gives you that mount. The Cavalier's banner requires a pledge, and you fly the banner of your pledge. It gives a bonus to your allies on will saves and DCs against fear. If your banner is destroyed, though, they become frightened. Cavaliers charge, you command your animal to double stride, and then you strike one enemy at some point during the movement with a bonus on your attack roll. That can be pretty handy. Impressive mount gives you a more impressive mount. A quick mount you can get onto your mount very quickly because you mount it and then immediately give it a command. Defend mount is a reaction where you're like, wait, don't detect my mount, you use your own AC instead of the mount's AC.
And if the attack hits, then you get hit instead of your mount. So
Yep.
it's very effective at protecting your mount.
Especially good if you have a mount with a really low AC.
And you've got a good AC, you could just...
Sometimes some good mount choices wind up with a lower AC, but a faster movement speed or something like that. So you can use defend mount. Mounted shield, another good one for that situation. I definitely took that one because I had a shield using Cavalier. Your raised shield benefit applies to your mount as well, and your shield block reaction can be used for your mount as well. So that's pretty handy.
Incredible mount to let you have a nimble or savage.
Yeah, that's right. Trampling charge, where you just take 3 action and you command your mount to stride around and move through the spaces of foes that are smaller and do some damage. And
Unseat, the very jousting themed ability to knock an opponent off their mount.
Yep. Absolutely. Specialized mount to be even more powerful. And then Legendary Rider, the 20th level feat where you are quickened to give a command to your mount. Handy.
Then we have the Celebrity.
The diva that just is always about the celebrity.
Yes.
They gain a +1 circumstance bonus to earn income if they use tasks that are higher than their own level, that are like above their own actual skills. They want to upstage their enemies anytime your foe has tried to do something and has not critically succeeded. You do the same skill as a reaction to try to do better. So if they succeeded, you need to critically succeed. If they failed, then you just need to succeed. And if so, then you get a bonus on pretty much everything until the end of your next turn. Attack rolls, perception checks, saving throws, and skill checks. I guess not AC, but, a lot of things. And so it's just like, aha, look how much better I am. And then you get, like, this bonus. Never Tire is one where you are observed by at least 3 creatures who aren't your foes, and you try to hold off on the fatigue condition so that you can show your people that a good show. Mesmerizing Gaze is a 2-action ability that forces things to become fascinated with you. And that way, it's very good against enemy spellcasters or others who need to use concentration and affect it on your allies. And then Command Attention, which is definitely the most powerful thing that you got as a celebrity. It's 1 action, and it's basically like all eyes on me. So any creature within 30 feet that needs to make a saving throw against other visual effects other than Command Attention uses the outcome 1 degree of success better than the result that they rolled. Because it's like, oh, there's Medusa? Yeah, but nobody's looking at her because they're looking at me.
Look at me.
An enemy within the area who tries to directly use a visual effect that involves focusing against attention, such as Medusa's Focus Gaze, must succeed at a will save against your class DC or spell DC in order to target anyone except you.
And importantly, allies in the area can attempt to hide even without cover because you are the distraction.
Yes, they're just looking. Your foes are looking at you, so they can try to hide just in your aura of taking everybody's attention. That's just how much of a spotlight hug you are. And you can see here, Shensen is doing her celebrity thing. And then there's the Dandy. Dandy just, they have 5 abilities, and the abilities are all hilarious because dandies are the genteel masters of style, culture, and decorum. So Dandy Dedication gives you the ability to influence rumors and just kind of spread your own rumors around in settlements and become trained in deception in society. Distracting Flattery is a reaction when your allies screw up because they do. The barbarian's going to screw up in a social situation. Then you try to use deception to distract the person so that the ally who screwed up does not actually decrease the attitude of the target as a result of their social blunder. You get gossip lore, where you've heard so much gossip that you know about every topic except for that it's dubious knowledge because it's from gossip, so
Yeah.
Fabricated Connections, which is where you just make up stuff. You can use deception to basically use a different skill when attempting to earn income, make an impression, request, or subsist. Even to subsist, you could like get by just on lying about who you are to get to places that have like free brunches or things like that. And then Party Crasher, the level 7 feat that is basically like you automatically get into after 1d4 hours to any party that actually has like any amount of guests or like help that are catering it or things like that. So not like the secret evil cabal's secret meeting that has exactly 5 people that are going and you can't bring anybody else into it, but
the
you
coronation, royal gala, any society function.
This is like, oh yeah, the king's coronation. Yeah, somehow your dandy is there. Is at the event. You were able to get access to it. You're a party crusher. You can get to any party. That's just what do if you're a dandy. So let's see.
Dragon Disciple.
Dragon Disciple is next. So they are very, very obsessed with dragons. That is because it's uncommon, and you need to be a kobold connected to a dragon, a barbarian connected to a dragon, a sorcerer connected to a dragon, or just somebody who's dealt with dragons in some kind of a way. And as a dragon disciple, you wind up with resistance based upon the dragon that you choose, and a +1 circumstance bonus to saves against sleep and paralysis. Then you can gain dragon claws, dragon scent, dragon magic that are just sort of added to your repertoire, or not. You have to still add them to your repertoire. Sorry, they're added to your spell list.
Yes.
So it's not great if you already have all of these spells on your spell list, but if you don't, you can just add them to your repertoire, add them to your add them to your spell book, or other things like that, so that you can cast them if they're not on your tradition's usual spell list. Scales of the Dragon to get some AC that you can use when you're unarmored, and of course, as we mentioned when we errated the very similarly worded things in the core rulebook, that's going to need to be changed to an item bonus that combines with runes, just like Mountain Stance and Animal Skin. Breath of the Dragon, which gives you the Dragon Breath, Sorcerer, Bloodline spell. Wings of the Dragon.
So you can breathe fire. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Wings of the Dragon have dragon wings, like in this picture. Shape of the Dragon, just become a dragon. Disciple's Breath, where you do just a Dragon Breath every 1d4 rounds. And Mighty Dragon Shape, where you can just turn into a dragon every hour. You're like, oh, it's noon, and it's time to turn into a dragon again.
There's a definite dragon theme, shall we say.
Are you sure, though? Are you sure there was a dragon theme?
I mean, Disciple's Breath did not have dragon or draconic in its name, and that was the only one that did.
Yeah, that's because it's Dragon Disciple. That's the disciple part.
There we go.
That's, you know why it didn't have dragon? Because Breath of the Dragon was already a feat, so it couldn't be another Breath of the Dragon.
That's true.
It had to use the Disciple.
Instead.
I mean, could have done Mighty, I guess, like Mighty Dragon Shape, but it's actually less mighty and more frequent.
Yes.
Alright.
How about the Dual Weapon Warrior?
Well, you can see it already has 5 additional feats, plus you just start off with Double Slice, kind of like the Bastion just started off with Quick Shield Block. And then you go right into Dual Thrower, which lets you use thrown weapons as part of your 2-weapon fighting feats. Dual Weapon Reload, where you can reload while you're carrying things in both hands that are weapons. Flensing Slice, where when you basically do a double slice and hit with both, you can flens for some additional damage. It's pretty solid amount of damage that also makes them flat-footed and lowers their resistances by 5 to physical damage types. It's pretty good, but you do have to hit with both of your hits from double slice, so it's something that it's one of those feats that where it's like you should probably have this, because if it applies on your turn as your third action, it's better than the other third action.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, like, you're not going to use it every time because it doesn't apply on a lot of turns.
Yes,
too.
but you mean it's also you use it after you've already seen that you hit, so you can decide, oh, this is the time to use this. Oh no, this
and
time.
if you had to move, you can't do it unless you're hasted or something.
But but for moving around, speaking of moving around, there's dual weapon blitz that lets
combos really well with cleansing slice. Yep.
Stride up to your speed at any point during the movement. Strike once with each of your 2 weapons.
Oh, I guess it doesn't combo with cleansing slice because it's not a double slice.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. That would be a little bit unfair if it was actually a double slice. It does apply multiple attack penalty, unlike double slice, but in exchange for mobility. And honestly, the mobility is going to be very important to you in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and you could attack different creatures with the 2 attacks.
Or you could attack the same foe twice.
All up to you.
And dual onslaught is kind of like the Marilith or Hydra thing, where it's just like you attack so many times that something's gonna hit. And so even if you miss with everything in your double slice, then one of the 2 weapons gets the effects of a hit.
And the only way to miss entirely on this is to double critically fail.
Oh yeah.
Which, how often are you gonna double critically fail? Like, it happens, but it's not that common.
Yes.
How about the duelist?
Well, the duelist is got a lot of situations that are a little more about dueling your enemy, as you can see here. There's a bunch of good Einhander feats for like one-handed, one-hand-free characters like dueling parry that are in additional feats. There's like, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those. Then there's Duelist Dedication, where you gain quick draw. Duelist Challenge, where you challenge somebody to a duel, and you get some extra bonus when using a single one-handed melee weapon with the other hand free. And attacking other people, you get a damage penalty. Then Selfless Parry, where you can try to use Dueling Parry to help your adjacent allies. And use Dueling Riposte when an enemy critically fails to strike against an ally in addition to you. And Student of the Dueling Arts, where you, during your daily preparation, swap out your Duelist Archetype feats for other Duelist Archetype feats. And enter a stance from the Duelist Archetype feat you don't have by taking more actions.
And there's a lot of feat options because of all the options from the core rulebook as well. So that gives a ton of flexibility for your duelist character to switch things up.
That's right.
Based on their opponent.
That's true.
How about the Eldritch Archer, who seems to want to shoot his own dedication feat?
That is what he wants to shoot. It's got Impossible Volley picked up from Ranger. And I think, and maybe Fighter. Eldritch Archer is magical and also an archer. Once known as Arcane Archer, but now all types of magic. You get a cantrip, you can shoot out an Eldritch Shot that puts like that cantrip or other magic if you have it into the bow. You can get basic Eldritch Archer spellcasting, which gives a little bit of casting. And expert and master Eldritch Archer spellcasting. Enchanting Arrow, where you can do some mental damage to your foes on your arrow. Magic Arrow, where you can just create a very low-level magical ammunition. Precious Arrow, where you can create a cold iron or silver and eventually adamantine arrow to shoot. Secret Arrow, where you can make a bow strike against a foe you can see and ignore their concealed condition and cover. And then Phase Arrow, which just completely phases through.
It's like, you're on the other side of a wall from me. I don't care. I will just have my arrow phase through the wall and attack you.
That is true.
And it also has ignores cover and concealed and hidden and shields, and has a +4 status bonus to hit creatures who are wearing any type of armor.
That's correct.
You phase through their armor.
It can't be reduced by a shield block because it's phasing through them, unless it is a magical shield.
+4 bonus. That's the highest that bonuses go.
Yep. Also, Arrow of Death is, you make a bow strike. On a hit, you deal 10d10 additional damage. On a critical hit, they must make a fortitude save or die. Death and incapacitation. But even if they make it, they still took 10d10 additional damage. So they probably aren't really pleased with.
They probably are.
And then there's sidebar about like how elves had arcane or eldritch archery, and then there's some other people who do too, like shadowy hunters in the Uskwood.
How about the familiar master?
Well, they love familiars, so they've got enhanced familiar from the core rulebook. They get a familiar with familiar dedication or enhanced familiar if they already had one. Familiar mascot can let them give their master abilities to somebody else instead of you. Familiar conduit can basically let you cast a spell from the familiar as an origin point. Improved familiar makes it easier to get an improved familiar. Mutable familiar lets you spend 10 minutes to switch certain abilities of the familiar during the day, and then incredible familiar has even more familiar abilities than enhanced familiar.
As you might expect, if you want a powerful and flexible familiar, go with the familiar master.
Yeah.
How about the gladiator?
Gladiators love being watched when they fight. That's what they do. They get gladiatorial lore to make some money from gladiating fighting. At the start of an encounter, if they're spectators, aka someone who is not just like their allies and not their enemies' allies, who are not really affiliated, like not just some random people that you hire to come to watch you, but just like somebody who's watching. It's like, whoa. It's like, some of the commoners are seeing us do this fight in the street, or just some bystanders who are watching the fight. You start with temporary hit points.
How about gladiator and celebrity in the same party who are always just trying to make sure that the public is observing?
What if it's the same character?
There you go.
Fancy moves, you use performance to demoralize people. Play to the crowd, you kind of like play up the crowd and try to get some extra benefits. Stage fighting is where you really know how to do non-lethal attacks because you know how to stage a good gladiatorial fight. Performative weapons training gets you trained in a bunch of weapons that are good for gladiators. And call your shot is when you play to the crowd, you get to add one additional option where a creature within 30 feet becomes frightened because you're like, I'm going to hit you exactly there. And then you do, and they're like, oh crap.
Legit?
Yep.
Then we've got the herbalist.
Herbalists, they create herbs, which is a good use for that alchemical crafting information in the intro, so that it doesn't have to be here again. They basically can make herbal alchemical items, which are defined as alchemical items with the healing trait plus antidote and anti-plague. I'm sure anything else at your gym's discretion that is obviously herbal would do. Fresh ingredients, where when you use natural medicine, which is required, the one that lets you use nature for to treat wounds, you could spend herbs to get additional bonuses. Poultice preparation, where you can kind of create an elixir as a poultice instead, which is an oil. So it doesn't have to be ingested, but you can kind of put it on to someone, and it gives an immediate flat check to recover from persistent acid, bleed, or fire damage. And is considered appropriate assistance. Expert herbalism is kind of the advanced alchemy increase for the herbalist dedication. And then endemic herbs, which is by far the longest part of that, is depending on where you got your herbs from, which different kind of, it's like, oh, there's a seaweed from the ocean that gives a special bonus as an additive with your alchemy. So it's different for every type of terrain. And that is where a lot of the words for this archetype come from, because it is cool, but it takes up 8 different bullet points.
Speaking of people who are who prefer the wild and are great at tracking through all sorts of different types of terrain, we have the Horizon Walker.
They've got 3 good terrainy additional feats, pretty much from the ranger. And that's absolutely, they get favored terrain. They get to move faster in travel speed on favored terrain. When you are leading and others are following the expert with you in that favored terrain, then they gain the ability to ignore non-magical difficult terrain for the purpose of their travel speed and the bonus to travel speed. And the ability to ignore non-magical difficult terrain for travel speed, I think, is from favored terrain. So basically, it's like you get all this for travel, but if your allies were also slow, it wouldn't really help you. But you can, you can like kind of lead them through it.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you have expert in survival, which you
But
don't immediately get.
that also still is helpful for having that extra speed if you want to be the one who's, for example, gathering
Yes.
what you need to forage and survive, while the others are just kind of okay. We'll just trek along.
And acclimatization in your favorite terrain gives you resistance to environmental damage, and you're affected by temperature effects as though they were one step less severe. Other creatures following the expert with you also treat the temperature effects as less, although they don't get the resistance. Sure Foot makes it so that in your favorite terrain, you're good at checks that are involving moving in there, such as acrobatics checks to balance on ice, or athletics to swim in rough water, or acrobatics to fly in windy conditions if you're in the sky as your favorite terrain.
Yes, Perpetual Scout, where you are always scouting whenever
At
you
all
for
times.
free at your favorite terrain.
And eventually in any terrain.
If you're legendary in survival.
Magical adaptation, where you gain a ability to use dark vision for when you're in the dark in a cave. Spider climb if you're like in a mountain or something you have to climb. Level 4 water breathing if you go in the water or need to breathe underwater. Whatever, you adapt to it all. And then Wild Strider. You gain the Ranger's Wild Stride, which allows you to ignore the effects of all non-magical difficult terrain, treating greater difficult terrain as merely difficult terrain, and gives you an additional benefit from the favorite terrain feat that says, oh, if you have Wild Strider, then this other ridiculous cool thing happens. And now you do, so it happens.
Then we have the Linguist.
Yes. Linguist is all about languages, so it's going to make you be trained in society and gain the multilingual skill feat twice. Or expert if you're already trained in society. And you gain the you can get multilingual cipher skill feat, which makes you good at deciphering writing. And it also makes it so other people can't decipher your writing as easily unless they speak all the languages you use to create it, because you're using multiple languages. And phonetic training, where you can pronounce words with near perfect accuracy even if you don't understand them, because you use a phonetic script to do so. And Spot Translate, which is a reaction when your ally is like a mesmerist who doesn't speak the right language, who is like, you will fall under my command, and the enemy is like, I don't speak common, what are they saying? It's like, I will translate for you. And you translate into their language, you will fall under my command.
It's like, no, stop translating. No,
like,
that's not helpful.
He's saying you will fall under my command, and then they fall under the mesmerist command because they're affected by the linguistic effect. Analyze idiolect, where you kind of break down somebody's mannerisms and habits to which gives you a bonus to impersonate them later on, because you're using some very, very specific parts of the way that they communicate. Read shibboleths, which can let you kind of figure out things like regional words or nonverbal cues that can tell you more about like where they grew up and how, which can find more information about them. And crude communication, where you can try to create a very basic understanding with someone after 10 minutes.
Even if you don't share a language.
That's right. In Legendary, you can do it instantly without needing to attempt a society check. Even if you didn't know the medium of communication the creature uses. Like if they communicate with the scent of weird slime, cut me out of them or something like that.
Then you just know as soon as they try to communicate, oh yes, that is the communication method, obviously.
The scent of weird slime.
And for more books and parchments, we have the Lore Master.
That's right. So we've got Lore Master. Lore Master is really, really good at lore. They've got things like Lore Master's Etude that are some of the kind of Enigma stuff from Bard, from the core rulebook. Basically 4 additional feats there. Lore Master Dedication gives them
Lore Master lore.
Yes.
The lore of all lores.
It is. It's like Bardic lore. And if you even already had Bardic lore, you get a +1 on Bardic lore from Lore Master. Magical Edification, where you gain Guidance, Message, and Sigil as innate occult spells. Orthographic Mastery, where you could attempt to decipher writing using Lore Master lore in place of the required skill. Quick Study, where you can try to, during your daily preparations, just quickly study a particular subject to gain trained proficiency in the lore of your choice. And then you can reference notes to instead choose a lore skill you've prepared before with quick study. It lasts until you prepare again.
So that's super useful for, because while Lore Master lore gives you a broad scope of knowledges, you can use quick study to focus in on knowing one specific topic so that you can benefit from the much lower DCs. Of,
yes.
Oh, yes, I do specifically about this.
The decreased DCs from that. Absolutely. And greater magical edification gives you comprehend language, mind link, and secret page. And secret page is automatically heightened.
Mm-hmm. Then we have the Marshal.
That's right. It is Marshal. Marshals really help lead their allies. They've got attack of opportunity as an additional feat. That's kind of their only one, because they've got all sorts of their own martial feats. They're good at either diplomacy or intimidation, and based on which one they pick, they can get some other abilities. They've got a little aura that helps their allies against fear. Then they're either the Dread Marshal or the Inspiring Marshal, where the Dread Marshal can give their allies a status bonus to damage.
Because they use intimidation to encourage their allies to strike fear into their foes, whereas the Inspiring Marshal is an example of dedication and poise, who uses diplomacy to inspire their allies.
They help attack rolls and saves against mental effects. And Snap Out of It is an action where you're like, hey, snap out of it! And your ally, affected by a mental effect that allowed a will save, has a duration no longer than 1 minute, can attempt a new will save with a +1 circumstance bonus against the DC.
Try to snap out of the effect.
And then Steal Yourself, where you give your ally temporary hit points and a bonus on fortitude saves. Cadence Call, where you spend an action once per minute, and all your allies in the aura are quickened to stride, but then become slowed. So they get an extra action now, and then they become slowed later. They basically, instead of 3-3 action, they go 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
Rallying Charge is a 2 action where you stride and make a strike, and if your strike hits and damages an enemy, all your allies within 60 feet who saw you gain temporary hit points. Back to back is where you're like back to back with your ally, and neither of you can become flat-footed due to flanking unless you're both flanked. That can be helpful if you're adjacent to more than one ally. All eligible allies can benefit at a given time. But if you and one ally are flanked, then all allies lose the benefit. To battle is either 1 or 2 actions. With 1 action, then you choose an ally and they stride. And for 2 actions, you choose an ally and they strike. That's simple but powerful. Topple Foe is a reaction where an ally makes a melee strike against an opponent, and you're like, okay, well, I'll trip them.
Pretty useful because any ally can do that.
Yeah. And then they're tripped, so it makes it easier to hit the opponent with your next attack, or your ally can move away, or something like that. Coordinated Charge is
I really like this archetype.
It's a 2 action where you stride up to your speed and make a strike. If your strike hits and damages an enemy, every single ally within 60 feet who saw you hit can use a reaction to stride, but they must end their stride closer to the creature you hit. Tactical Cadence, when you use Cadence Call, that one where you took the action now to get slowed later, then they can stride or strike, not just stride, and they are not slowed on their following turn.
There we go.
So it's super good. It's just 1 action once per minute to just give everyone a stride or a strike that they can do, and that they can do on their next turn, and then there are no drawbacks. Target of Opportunity, an ally succeeds at a ranged strike against an opponent within your weapon's first range increment, and then you make a ranged strike at a -2. Is pretty handy as well. It's kind of like an attack of opportunity with range that happens, or I guess it's more like the rogue's ability to attack when someone else hits in melee. Opportunist at range at a -2. So that is Marshal.
What about Martial Artist?
What about Martial Artist? So Martial Artist is kind of like a non-monkish user of some of those different kinds of unarmed attacks. So Martial Artist has a whole bunch of additional feats that are just mostly stances, but also brawling focus. And they gain a better fist unarmed attack, kind of like a monk, and can make lethal unarmed attacks. And they automatically get better unarmed attack proficiency when they level up, which pretty much every class does, but you know, someday there might be one that doesn't, so it gets that too. Follow-up strike is a single action after you missed with a strike that allows you to make another strike with a melee unarmed attack.
With the same multiple attack penalty as for the miss strike, so you're not continuing to build up. It's like, oh no, this is actually what I meant to do.
Yes, I meant to do this. Then there's Grievous Blow, which is a focused, powerful blow that bypasses your enemy's resistance. So it's a 2-action unarmed attack. Counts as 2 attacks. It deals a bunch of extra damage and it ignores resistance to physical damage equal to your level. So it's really, really good if the enemy has high resistance. And then Path of Iron is a 14th level once per minute, 3-action. But with a burst of speed, you stride, making up to 3 strikes during the movement, each against a different enemy, and each at your highest bonus without the multiple attack penalty applying yet.
Nice.
Pretty snazzy. Speaking of combat style archetypes, the Mauler archetype is two-hander archetype. So it's got like 5 cool two-hander feats from additional feats. Dedication is going to give you proficiency in two-handed weapons, and it's going to keep scaling.
Clear the way lets you put your body behind your weapon and shove up to 5 creatures out of the way using your weapon.
Yeah, you just like, and then you stride up to half your speed after you shove them. And if you shove them, then they don't get a reaction that they normally would when you move. Shoving Sweep is a reaction when a creature within your reach leaves a square during a move action it's using, where you swing your weapon at them, rebuffing them back, so you can shove them. It continues its movement after the shove, so it's particularly funny if the enemy is just kind of trying to get around you to an ally, and you're like, no, you push them back.
Hammerquake, when you have a non-finesse melee weapon, so one of those big bruiser weapons, you can smash it into the ground to make the ground shake and knock a foe over. Like
you do. And by a foe, we mean every foe in the chosen square plus each square adjacent to that square. So
there you go.
It could be a lot, especially if they're tiny and or they're Isoki and they're all just in the same square for some reason. Avalanche Strike is a 3-action where you attack all nearby adversaries, making a melee strike with a 2-handed weapon, or a weapon you're wielding in 2 hands, against every enemy within your reach. It's like Whirlwind Strike, but with a 2-handed weapon. Pretty snazzy. Mm-hmm. Alright. Medic Archetype. It is all about using medicine, especially battle medicine. So it heals a lot more with battle medicine and treat wounds. It's got Doctor's Visitation, where it is a flourish that lets you stride and then battle medicine or treat poison, and potentially administer first aid or treat a condition if you spend more actions. Treat Condition is a 2-action ability where you attempt to reduce clumsy, enfeebled, or sickened conditions on your allies based on your medicine. Holistic Care lets you also provide emotional and spiritual care to others so that you can reduce frightened, stupefied, and stunned, as well as the other ones. And Resuscitate is a 3-action when you got your healer's tools and somebody dies and their body is mostly intact. You attempt DC 40 medicine to bring them back from the dead if they've been dead for no more than 3 rounds. It does wound them.
Yeah, but you friggin' brought them back from the dead.
They are then temporarily immune to Resuscitate for 1 day.
Let's see.
Thank you.
Awesome. So shall we wrap it here and
Let's
start
maybe
again with
maybe do Pirate as our
right.
last one, because
Sounds
then
good.
we finish the spread. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, Pirate R.
So we made it way well through the archetypes, but Pirate R, this is like the first, one of the first archetypes. Cavalier being the other one, because they were in the playtest. But a lot has changed since the playtest, including the ability to have skill feats in your archetypes. So Pirate has got Pirate Dedication, where you get sailing lore. You don't have to worry about difficult terrain or uneven ground because of a ship's movement. And you get Boarding Action, where you stride up and that or attempt an acrobatics check to swing on a rope. If you boarded or disembarked a boat, then you make a strike that deals an additional weapon damage die. And then pirate weapon training gives you some very piratical weapons. Rope runner is a skill feat that gives you a climb speed on ship's rigging, and you're very good at climbing on ropes and balancing on ropes. And then walk the plank is a 2-action ability where you demoralize with the incapacitation trait. On a success, you can force them to stride up to their speed. You can't force them to move into a harmful space, like actually walking off the plank with sharks below, unless you critically succeeded. In which case, go for it. Then they're temporarily immune to your walk the plank for 24 hours.
And there's a thing in Pirate that specifically says you're often going to see pirate mixed up with swashbuckler, and a lot of these things like the boarding assault and such, the checks that are involved in those, they're very showy, and they definitely can give you panache.
Yes, because Swashbuckler says if you do something appropriately showy and beat the very hard DC, you can get panache. Doesn't mean that you fail the check if you don't beat the very hard DC. It just wasn't stylish enough at that point. So there we go. We can end on Pirate. And
sounds good.
We actually only have like a lot fewer. We made it way more than halfway through the Archetypes today. So thanks for joining us with our whirlwind tour through the very, very large Archetypes chapter
of the Advanced Player's Guide. And let's say goodbye to YouTube.
All right. Bye, YouTube. See you next time.
Bye.